Okay, we've got a very special guest on the bench today, a Crumar digital synthesizer DS2, sort of analog digital hybrid. The complaint was there was no power, but before that also one of the digital oscillators was not working. The power not working was quite simply its fuse. It's supposed to be a time lag. I've got a funny feeling this is a quick blow. The analog section seems to work, and quite nicely on this sense at least it's got a lift up lid. So here we have the power supply section. I'm not sure what anything is yet, we'll have to find that out. The oscillator board looks like this one, because compared to on the schematic it's the only one that has caps. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tackle is the VCF envelope that's not working. So the filter's working, the VCA envelope is working, but the VCF envelope isn't. These are the controls for the envelope, and this is the actual envelope circuit, and there's a couple of anchor points to stop it from moving, and this happens to be a nice earth. So when we look at the scope, this envelope, where we can see the release of the envelope, and we have nothing on the output pins there. So switch off. So I don't know if that shows up on the camera. The legs look pretty mucky. I'm just going to swap that for a TL072. TL072. Still nothing. Looking for. We'll just swap these two logic chips around. Because they're on IC holders, it makes this really easy. Oh, okay, we have an envelope shape there, and this one, nothing. So that has moved the fault from one side to the other. So this is a 4066. Okay, so I'll take this broken one out. Put the working one back in there. And I'm going to go off to Maplin's. Let's check. I'll turn the sustain down and we'll have a slowish decay. VCF. Yeah, the filter's staying high. And I just spotted something else. Yes, it looks like the left leg of this preset potentiometer is broken off. I can find my solder. So I'm just going to pre-tune the resistor leg here. So by the looks on the scope, it looks like this sets the initial attack time, which is why we were getting no attack showing on the scope. And it needs to come up here, and I need to solder to the trace and to the pot. Okay, now the trick is to be super quick. I'm going to have to get my other light. We have no attack now, but let's see what happens if we adjust the trim pot. I took this board out and just cleaned the pins. But you can see touching it, it's affecting the circuit. So I think I'm going to want to take out all these boards so I can have a look at the motherboard down the bottom. Now this is out, I might as well just go over every connection to make sure we got a really good solid bond. Just screwing this board back into place. Hopefully I shan't need to have to take it out again. And I'm just going to give all the pins a clean, the boards that we plug in. My little trusty fiberglass pencil. And I'm going to reflow the pins on this VCO board as well. Okay, that's a lot more stable now. Still no oscillator 2 though, oscillator 1, sorry. Although this is not directly to do with the oscillators, I did notice on this card there's some gunk in the sockets here and on the legs. Now this does the notes, so I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but as every socket seems to be gunked up, I think we're going to replace all the sockets on here. Okay, this is actually a double-sided board, so you have to be really careful you don't lift any of these traces up. So I think it's going to need a little bit of flux, extra flux. Okay, that's all the sockets out. Let's put the new ones in. Okay, that's the sockets in. Okay, so this is the master oscillator board, and I've added some breadboard wires so we can plug it back into the motherboard section and take some voltage readings, see if there's what's going on. Okay, now we've got the board out, we can take some voltage readings, and straight off the bat I can see that here we have a voltage reading, and on the same pins on this side we do not, and those pins go to the same component pins, so I was expecting the same voltage. I traced back these two pins and it turns out that it's part of the pitch bender and the fine tune for the oscillators, and if I hold that voltage and do a pitch bend, that's a pitch bend up, back to the centre, and pitch bend down. And here we have no voltage at all. So in this circuit we have these preset potentiometers. So I noticed that when I turn the preset pot, suddenly we get a voltage, and I turn it back again and the voltage goes. So if I turn the oscillator up, that's the first oscillator, that's oscillator 2, the working one, and now So there's a broken trace on this preset potentiometer. So I'm going to replace both of them. Okay, unfortunately the legs are bent over, which makes it quite difficult to kind of use the solder pump. So I'm going to use some flux with some braid to see if I can maybe straighten the legs out. Well, that didn't go fantastically well, so I have to have the first oscillator pitched up 4 semitones. So I'm not quite sure why that is. It sounds quite good though. But also this oscillator 2 doesn't have the top octave, so let's just have a quick look at that because it's really annoying me. Okay, I've got my multimeter on continuity, and this is the switch here, and it only seems to have one pole, so that's the first position. Second position. Third position. And the fourth position is okay to the leg, but there's no solder on here. And that goes all the way down to there, and there's no connection. I'll take a close-up picture of that. Yeah, look, so that looks like it hasn't had any solder on from the factory. Okay, I think I can do this in situ. Okay, great. So we have still a problem with the LFO delay. If I just get one oscillator, I'm going to put this LFO onto the oscillator pitch. Okay, now if I switch the delay on, it stops completely. So the LFO delay is just altering the pitch when it shouldn't be. It should be altering probably like a VCA or something which is controlling this LFO. So we have here the LFO board, and I believe this is the LFO delay board. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just whip this board out and just have a little poke. Don't know if you can see all this white gunk on a lot of the pins. So I'm going to have to wash that. Okay, so this is the delayed LFO section, and the LFOs are generated here and they come to this board first before going back to the other board. CA3080 on here. Okay, so we have a broken tracer. I don't know if you can see that very well. Okay, let's solder that back up. Okay, so we've got the LFO2 delay working. Not much else on those boards, so if we just swap a couple of chips around and see what happens. And turn that off. So there's a pair of CA3080s. Okay, so it's that CA3080. I'm not sure if I've got one. Hold on. Okay, for the sake of completion for this video, I'm actually going to take a CA3080 from my trusty Frequency Central System X amplifier. And there we go. Luckily the one we need to change is on the bottom here, so hopefully this will be quite painless. And how did you check it out? Okay. Excellent. so a lot of that is working great. Now one thing we haven't looked at is the polyphonic string section here. Let's turn those oscillators down. So there we have the polyphonic section. This is actually a separate string section which is underneath the keyboard here, and there's two screws which screw up from the bottom. When you undo those, we can lift the keyboard up. But if we just see what's going on here. So you can see we're missing some notes. The string synth is primarily, you have a single oscillator which then gets clock divided down into the separate notes. So if we just have a look. Now of course I've opened this up already, and let me give you a closer look. Let's see if you can guess what the problem is. Yes. So maybe this has gone faulty in the past and they couldn't get the parts, and in fact these are quite difficult to get hold of. I had a quick look online. There is a couple floating around on eBay. However, due to the fact that you have 1, 2 and this note, they're quite separated apart, so I have a funny feeling there's going to be another faulty chip in there. So what I'm going to do is just quickly run the scope across and see if I come up with anything untoward. Okay, so I've had a poke around, and on this IC here, pin 3 on this chip, this is the waveform we get, and if I probe pin 3 on another clock divider, you can see how that is actually 5, that's 10 volt peak to peak, and yet this pin 3 is just under 2 volt peak to peak. So I'm pretty sure that chip is faulty as well. If I just take it out, then it should make no difference to what's happening with the notes. Okay, no difference at all. So all the other chips look fine. I'm going to have to order those off eBay. So see you in a bit. So here we have a nice fresh pair of HBF4727 clock dividers. Switched off. Make sure they go around the correct way. And okay. Okay, so we've got that dodgy note. Let's have a quick look at that. Okay, great, the keyboard's all good now. Another thing is the LFO amount on the string section. If I switch that in, it's a bit dodgy, so I'm actually going to see if I can give that a bit of clean with some alcohol and also clean the pots whilst I'm there.